Hello and welcome to the Global Weather Show. There's certainly been a fair bit of active weather over the past week or so. We start off talking about the largest tropical cyclone so far this year, Typhoon Sulik, that barreled into China. Sichuan, the worst flooding in 50 years. India has seen some deadly and devastating flooding too. Singapore, some very high pollution. Devastating flooding for Toronto last several days. And in the US, triple-digit heat has been baking the desert southwest. In addition, the east coast of the US as well. Spain's had the heat too, 40 degrees plus in the last several days. And the UK, well into the 30s in the heat wave as well. How about a cool down, a nice ice-cold bar? All that to come. The recent tropical cyclone Typhoon Sulik has been the strongest storm so far this year, but let's take a closer look at it. This storm was quite an intense-looking beast that came to life pretty quickly in the warm waters of the Western Pacific. Look at that cloud shield right there and the outer arms just coming to life as it worked its way in, forming some about the 7th or the 8th of the month, slowly gaining its strength. You can see the wind field there, the reds are stronger winds, and barreling its way in slowly across the northern parts of Taiwan and China, gaining its fuel from the warmer water. But it was the upper level highs sitting just to the north and east, actually just to the south of this storm, which I'll show you, was the main reason why this storm kept in its track, moving more of a west-northwesterly, as opposed to if the high was further east, that would have allowed it to curve and move more towards Japan. But in this particular case, it moved right in there across parts of Taiwan and also southeast China, moving in across Taiwan on the 13th of July, and it brought winds in excess of 120 kilometers an hour, widespread devastation. Of course, all this worked its way slowly in a still weakened storm, but it moved in eventually across the Fujian province of China before gradually weakening once it's lost its fuel from its warm water source of the sea. Elsewhere in China, flooding has been news too. In Sichuan province, they've recently experienced the heaviest rainfall in 50 years. The torrential rain has led to widespread flooding and mudslides and displaced tens of thousands of people. It's all been down to a very slow-moving weather system. All that rain just piling together from storms not really moving at all. You can see the areas of blue there. Converging winds bring these storms, and in fact in some spots, Zhejiang picked up 94 millimeters of rain in the span of a day. The worst flooding ever since records began. And of course, with the local topography, lots of mountains, you had widespread mudslides and all that coming together to bring tens of thousands of people being displaced and intense flooding across much of the region. The extreme flooding that has affected Uttarakhand, the northwestern province of India, could be one of the deadliest disasters in India's history. Let's take a closer look at this. And it's all down to the Indian monsoon, which typically migrates its way north across the subcontinent through the months of June and July. That was more active and faster than normal. Combine that with stronger winds in the westerlies, the upper level winds working in, they were slower to clear away. They provided some extra oomph in the atmosphere to help bring to life those heavier downpours that just kept coming and dumping all that rain across the far north and west. And take, for instance, Dehradun, they picked up some 370 millimeters of rain in the span of 24 hours in mid-June, the highest 24-hour rainfall in the city's history. There are also some parts of the region that between the 13th and the 19th of June received over 8 times their normal rainfall. The topography of the region also helped give rise to massive landslips. The torrential widespread flooding left tens of thousands displaced, with thousands missing and presumed dead. Further afield, in other parts of Asia, there have been very high pollution levels in Singapore recently. In late June, Singapore, the air pollution index soared to a record high of 401. This is into the hazardous category. It was all down to long-range transport that brought in smoke particulates from nearby fires in Indonesia and spread them in across parts of Singapore. These particulates from the fires spread their way in the prevailing winds and settled around the atmosphere of Singapore. Sometimes prevailing weather conditions can exacerbate these pollution conditions by allowing them to linger for longer periods of time before being blown away or washed out by the air. North America's had its share of weather news recently too. Toronto, Ontario and Canada had the wettest day ever when more than a month's rainfall fell in less than 2 hours, flooding motorways and stranding motorists at the height of the evening rush hour. But how do you get a month's worth of rainfall in 2 hours? Well, it was a combination of various factors coming together. You had converging winds in the lower levels of the atmosphere coming together across that section of southern Ontario, combined with some good upper level oomph, an upper level shortwave moving through that gave the energy to bring all the moisture and all the storms to life. And they barreled their way through the afternoon and brought some 90 millimeters of rain in the span of 2 hours. A typical month would have 75 millimeters of rain for the city. So buckets of rain, and of course all that inundation and all that flooding and all those motorists stuck on the motorways. Well, extreme heat has been the other big talking point across parts of North America recently. Triple-digit heat, in fact, temperatures came close to the all-time world record high of 134. Death Valley reached 128, not far from that, and many spots were well into triple digits, in excess of 115. But how do you get temperatures to triple digits? Well, first off, the jet stream. The ribbon of air in the upper levels of the atmosphere was well north, running from the western parts of California right the way north to the US-Canadian border and then down through the Rockies. That allowed all the warm air to feed in over the southwestern US. At the same time, a big area of high pressure sat in place. Think of that like a big mountain of air sitting there. More pressure downwards, more compression, more warmth, and voila! Triple-digit heat over the southwestern US. The extreme heat and drought conditions across the southwestern US have recently brought the ideal conditions for the wildfires here. Wildfires can create their own unique weather with local winds, that temperature contrast that can bring about that, and the shifting winds as well can bring about where an actual wildfire will spread to and how quickly. And the recent Yarnell fire in northwest Arizona claimed the lives of over 20 firefighters and was the biggest loss of life from a wildfire in over 50 years. The Dose wildfire, raging just outside Prescott, Arizona, threatened nearby homes and extended over 2,000 hectares. The extreme heat has also reached eastern parts of the US, where daytime temperatures are well into the 90s. And you add in as well some humidity and quite stifling, to say the least, the Big Apple heat. You've also, being so close to the water, you add to that fuel, that warmer temperatures well into the 90s. You have the heat in a similar way, but it's that warmer air coming down from the mountains, meeting that moisture, making it feel very sticky and very uncomfortable indeed. Europe has had its share of extreme weather with cold and flooding over the last several months, but recently they've been feeling the heat too, with temperatures around 40 C across southern regions from Spain over to Greece and western Turkey. And it's all down to a big fat area of high pressure sitting across the western parts of Europe that's been pumping in the heat. And in addition, it's been bringing the warm air from the African deserts. That's been feeding its way in, pushing temperatures across Spain well above 40 degrees. And not just there, but even further north, western parts of Europe, and in particular, across the British Isles, where we've seen temperatures into the 30s from the southeast of England right the way north to the Midlands. So it's been perfect weather for the outside, for the beaches, for the ice cream man, but it's been rather oppressive as well, where you take typical temperatures in the British Isles only up to the lower 20s for normal days in the summer, and they've been well into the 30s. Well, if you had enough of the heat, you can always get a nice cool drink at the newly opened -5 Chill Out Bar in New York City, where there's probably plenty of ice cubes on tap for those lovely cool drinks. That's all for now. We'll see you next time.